Hi, I'm Becca and welcome to a video discussing Percy Jackson, the differences between the books and the recent Disney Plus TV show. I wrote this video idea out over a year ago when the first season actually dropped, and then I never got around to filming this video, but I've done some rereading of Rick Riordan's books, and his newest release, Wrath of the Triple Goddess, just came out and I've recently read that, and I thought I should actually talk about Percy Jackson because I loved this series as a kid and I'm continuing to love it as an adult as well, and I would just love to talk about it. But this is a warning too, because if you haven't read the books, if you haven't watched the show, I'm going to be talking obviously about the different scenes and the differences, so this will contain spoilers. So if you haven't seen the relevant content, maybe don't watch my content either. But if you want to talk about Percy Jackson, you're in the right place. So leave me some blue heart emojis in the comments if you are staying to watch. So the one that I want to start on is the real MVP, Sally Jackson, Percy's mum, and how she's taking Grover and Percy to Camp Half-Blood, but obviously because she's human, she can't get into the boundary. And so that's when the Minotaur strikes, trying to stop them from getting to Camp Half-Blood. And in the show, I know that Percy conquered the Minotaur and he has the spoils of war, which is his horn afterwards, and that is true to the book. But the way it happened, I don't remember Grover being there. Maybe he was knocked out, and I also don't remember it taking place in the exact situation it did. I thought it was more close to the border. There was a sequence of events leading up to it that, again, I should have filmed this a lot longer ago, but I don't remember them being exactly the same, and that's why I noted it down. I think the mild sequence of events were out of order, but overall, for an adaptation, the flow worked really well, the timing was great, and you understood the gravity and the tension of Sally Jackson disappearing and Percy witnessing that. But then something that did happen out of order, and I think that was the Medusa scene. So at the Medusa scene, you have the Furies and then Medusa, but I believe the trio are on their journey and they encounter Medusa first and then the Furies afterwards on the bus, whereas this time I think it happened in both instances. So Percy, Annabeth and Grover turn up to Aunt Em's, I think it's called, and it's a statue yard, but it's also a diner and they're starving. And then enter Medusa, who has a feud, I think, with Poseidon based on the original Greek myths, and so therefore hates Percy on sight and wants to turn him into a statue for her garden. But I love what the show did in that Percy actually used Medusa's head, and he didn't do that before, and I forgot this about the book, so it's very true to the book as well. He uses Medusa's head, packages it up, and then sends it off to Mount Olympus as a screw you to the gods. But in the show, the trio go into Medusa's because they can see that something is amiss, but they need to escape the Furies, so they take on one evil instead of another. But in the book, they're so tired, they just kind of stumble into things and realize things as they go and as they literally come across it in the scene, whereas in the show, they've got to be a little bit more savvy. I think maybe because the viewers of the show wouldn't necessarily buy exactly what the characters in the book are, and in the book, you can get away with slowly revealing things, whereas if you walk into a scene in a show, the viewer can see everything. We know what's going on. We know Medusa's around the corner, and that the Furies were used to almost bookend Medusa. That's how I remember it. If it's wrong, I'm sorry, but I believe they attacked at the beginning. Maybe they got off the bus to encounter Medusa. I'm not sure. I thought they went to the Furies as well after, but either way, it was backwards to how I remember it in the book. So that was an out of order sequence of events. But again, the timing worked, and I think that's almost because they had the author on to help with the show. Almost like it makes a difference. Then one thing that I was like, okay, I didn't love it, but I really enjoyed how it happened in the book, was Annabeth's backstory, and that in the show, Percy and Grover have more of a rapport than him and Annabeth at the beginning for obvious reasons, but Grover is the one who told Percy about Annabeth's backstory. Whereas in the book, it's later in the book and it's while they're in the truck with all the animals and Grover's asleep and Annabeth confides in Percy. They had a different moment of protection and confiding in the show than they did to the book, but I still wish that Annabeth got to share her story personally with Percy rather than via Grover. But I understand why there was a stylistic choice made there, because you had to get all the info out pretty early on about your main characters. Like, you can't hold that off as easily as you can in a book. So I think for the different formats, both worked, but I still wish they found a way to channel Annabeth's story into being told by herself to Percy, like they had that quiet moment in the truck in the book. So again, that was a little bit off kilter, but it still kind of worked for the show. Another thing that I was like, that's a pretty big thing and you're making a different character experience it, but it was when Annabeth saw the three fates and they cut the string and the string is supposed to represent life. Whereas in the book, because Percy's the main character, obviously the show is called Percy Jackson, so technically he's also the main character, but he didn't see the fates. And that's one of his key throwbacks in the book. When you get more into the series, he starts getting concerned about his own life and the prophecies, because Annabeth is the one that has all of the knowledge, because she's been at Camp Half-Blood the longest. She's the one who saw the fates. So I guess it makes sense that in the show she saw the fates, because all of the viewers who haven't necessarily read the books would associate Annabeth with knowledge, so she would know what she's looking at, whereas Percy would have no idea. And, you know, Percy just has consistently no idea across all of the series, and that works for me, and it works for him in the book. And it only works when Annabeth is there to be his encyclopedia the whole time. So I guess it kind of works, but I still wish they found a way to make Percy see the fates. Also in the tower, I was like, is this character supposed to be here yet? Because I'm pretty sure Echidna, when she shows up, and she has a slight against Annabeth because she's got an old grudge with Annabeth's mum, Athena, I'm pretty sure Echidna wasn't in the series until at least book 3. So they've mishmashed a lot of the earlier books, which I'm actually quite a fan of because all of it sequentially fits quite well, even though it's been mixed around. But I don't know if other people are as easygoing about that as me. I read the books and the show kind of as crossover because obviously they're so similar, but at the same time, because they're different formats, I understand why changes need to be made. In the show as well, there was a moment where Grover had to wait behind with Ares, and I don't remember that from the book. I remember the whole trio going together, but I could be getting things mixed up. So I know that Percy and Annabeth go together to find Ares' shield because he left it in the clutches of Hephaestus. So when they were going there in the book, I thought the three characters had to get through a series of gates, and those gates were represented in the show. But I also thought that Grover was the one who saved them closer to the end when they're trying to escape. So I think in the book, Grover had the flying shoes on. At the end of that particular sequence or scene, Annabeth and Percy both jumped and Grover is the one who saved them. Instead, I think Hephaestus in the show ends up letting them go after giving a speech to Annabeth. She defies the gods because she's going through rapid character growth at the moment, and honestly, I love it because you can see her processing everything and changing in a good way and realizing who she is. And I like that because it's shown in a TV show, you've got the three main characters and it's easier to give them airtime and visual viewer time, whereas in the books you're just following Percy's perspective. I wish Grover was a little bit more involved in their rescue because it seems like sometimes he's reduced to the goofy side character, but he's actually got a lot of pizzazz, I guess, and drive, and he's got such a strong friendship with Percy, and I love seeing that represented, and I love seeing how his bond grows with Annabeth as well. And leaving him to just sit with Ares, I guess it showed some of his intelligence too, because he was talking with Ares quite a lot and you saw how switched on he was in their conversation. So he did have his moment to shine, but it was away from the other two, and I wish it was more of an action focused moment, but it was a bit more of a character moment. So I guess I can't complain too much because it kind of balanced out. Then at the end of the series, we've got Luke, who is betraying Percy because Luke hates his father for being such an absent father and causing him so much turmoil in the past that he's like, I'm going to side with the big bad and take down Olympus rather than side with all the demigods and all their godly parents. So at the end, when there is a scorpion sting, I think it was a scorpion sting. I can't remember if it was in the show. I wrote in my notes that it wasn't a scorpion sting, but I know that Percy was infected by something, so I could have that a little bit mixed around. But I also like the show in how it showed Annabeth overhearing everything. So she wasn't just hearing everything secondhand and then having to believe it. She sees Luke actively betray Percy. And I also actually like that there's no hardcore romance between Annabeth and Luke. It's more of a trust and a hero and an idealization complex happening. It might develop into romance a bit later when you get a bit more understanding of her perspective, because at the moment it's, you know, the end of a series and they haven't really had a chance to talk about it yet. But I like that it doesn't do the romance thing immediately. Whereas, you know, in the show, sometimes to make a series sell, you've got to do a subplot of romance or a love triangle or something. And I love that potentially Rick Riordan nipped that in the bud. No matter what happens with Annabeth's relationship, I know that her and Percy are endgame. And I think I'm going to enjoy Percy realizing that he gets jealous of other people paying attention to Annabeth. I just love his loyalty and his protectiveness, and how Annabeth calls him out when he's doing something stupid just gives me joy. So that is everything I want to discuss so far about the TV show and the books of Percy Jackson. I've obviously missed some stuff, so if you notice anything you want to talk about, or if I've missed something glaringly obvious, please let me know. But thank you so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you below in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.